Okay, so this is our star performer this year. Hi folks, I'm the star of this show, Tom the turkey. What we're going to do is we're going to debone them. Now, the deboning process is a hell of a lot easier if you're doing it with a chicken or a smaller bird. So some of this process is going to get a little tedious, but it'll be okay. By the way, I owe this method to Jacques Pepin, who has a good video of doing the boning out as well. So I recommend looking at both. What's going to happen is I'm going to basically remove the main joint of the wing here, and then there's a process where we're going to turn these into a thing called a lollipop. And then I'll remove the wishbone, that'd be the third thing in the process. Fourth, I'll slice the back of the turkey, and then you pull back the wings and cut through the joint here. And really, there aren't going to be a whole lot of serious cutting going on. It's the joints that you're really going to get. In fact, it's really 4 joints here, and the joints at the legs eventually. Then you're going to pull back the meat, pry it back to the oyster, which is the oyster pad is sitting here. And then you pull the meat away from the back to the front. And what will happen is you'll see that the whole front away is going to be removed from the carcass. I'll then cut along the oyster pads and come down to the leg, turn the bird over, and break the leg from the carcass. The fillets will still be up on the breast. I'll remove those and remove the sinew on those. The next step is I'll cut around the top of the leg and eventually scrape away the meat from the bone. Get down here, cut around the leg, scrape down along the bone until the bone is completely separated from the meat. I'll then break the leg here and we can pull the bones out. I'll then cut around up here, around the wing, and do the kind of the same process of scraping the bone back and eventually pulling the bone out. At this point, the carcass will be completely removed from the meat. I'll lay the bird back out, be splayed out. I'll take the fillets and position them to fill in where there's no meat. You basically want a nice flat layer of meat. On top of that will be a layer of stuffing, and then we'll seal the bird and get them ready to prep in the oven. Okay, so one of the things, you want to try and get your bird as dry as possible. The reason for the drying is it's just a lot easier to hold on to the parts of the bird as you're working on this. Always make sure your knives are very sharp. I'll probably use 2 knives in this process, kind of a traditional boning knife and a smaller knife for just trimming around things. The key to this is you try to make as little cutting as possible. Most of this is going to be separating the meat from the bone by pulling it or scraping it. And again, with the turkey, you may have to do a little more cutting just because it tends to be, as far as I can tell, a little tighter connected to the bones, the meat does. So now I'm going to take the wing and should be able to see where the bone is connected here. Just cut along that. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I mentioned this thing called making a lollipop. You take the wing and you break it, and you'll see there's 2 bones there. You kind of force it down. I'm going to use a knife just to separate this a little bit.
So that might make it easier.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now, see, I've got that separated away, and I'm going to just cut this here now off. And now I'm going to remove one of the bones. You can use a little scraping to finish things off.
Save all the meat.
Oh yeah, save everything for soup stock. Bones and whatever you got here. It makes a heck of a soup. I'm going to do a little separation around here just so I can make the lollipop, and that'll be yours. Okay. And the whole objective here is to get to the point where you can actually scrape this down. Okay. As you can see, we're creating here this little lollipop. In this case, just either cook it the way it is, a little salt and pepper. I like to roll it in mustard and breadcrumbs, but whatever you choose to do. All right, we'll do the same process here, so this is going to get redundant. Now, if you're doing this with a chicken, they would just slide down like there's no tomorrow. And that's why this takes a little longer. Chicken usually takes about 20 minutes or so. This will take about 40. There you go. All right, so we got our 2 lollipops.
Turkey pop.
Yep. They're kind of fun hors d'oeuvre if you do them with chicken. All right, so now the wishbone. We all know the wishbone. You're supposed to make a wish. And that sits up in here. Take your knife. And again, you're just dealing with a bigger form factor than you would with a chicken.
About Alice.
Good to practice on a chicken, by the way.
Restaurant.
Recommend it highly.
But Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant, that's just the name of the song.
Right.
And that's why I call
All right,
the
we're almost
song
there.
Alice's Restaurant. You can get
Shake it away.
anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want.
All right, so we've just done the step 3. Took out the wishbone. And now I'm going to slice down the back here.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant.
All right, so that's step 4. And pull the wing back out through the joint. Okay, so what we're trying to do is separate this wing from the carcass. I'm going to cut this right here. It's in the way. There we go. And what I'm going to do here now, this is one of the places where you really are cutting. You see the joint here. What you're going to do is take your knife and go into the joint and see if you can find the points where they come together and just cut through. There we go. All right. So that's the one wing. And then we do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to just separate a little bit from here. And again, we're trying to use our hands to take and rip back the meat. And I'm going to use a little knife work here just because it's, again, a little tougher meat than a chicken. But what I'm doing is coming back to that oyster pad. All right, that should allow me to move around the breast with my fingers and pull away the meat. And cut that little bit of sinew here.
Tell us about the advantages of doing this process and cooking the boneless turkey.
Well, as you can imagine, carving becomes a lot easier.
Oh yeah, there's that.
And again, since the stuffing will be right inside the bird with no bone around it, everybody gets stuffing with their slice of their turkey.
Does it cook up differently? Is it more tender or a different texture? Or a different...
That's a good question. I'd say it cooks about the same. It takes a little less time to cook. All right, as you can see, I'm working my way down. And you can see the breast fillet here, which you leave on. And I just work my way down, and this is all coming apart nice and neatly. Good. Again, here's the oyster pad on this side. Here's the oyster pad on this side. So now we're going to cut out that oyster. You know, it sits in a little socket here.
That's a super yummy tender piece of meat, right?
And if you're a dark meat fan, that's the best piece. Okay, so we're working on the oyster pad here, separating that, which is a muscle, so it's tight. There, we got that. And now we do the other side. All right. Okay, and now, this is still part of the cutting the oyster pad, but you want to break this leg away at the joint. All right, so you see both of these legs are now separated away with the oyster pad nicely.
You
Put
can
the
get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Yeah, this should be able to
You
get
can get
completely away
anything
now.
you want at Alice's restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Now, really what I'm doing here is just trying to get all the meat away from the carcass. So ultimately, it will be completely separated. This is a little tight here. There we go. All right, it's coming.
This is definitely for the strong.
Yeah, well, especially like I said with the turkey. Chicken is nothing. Okay, come on. All right, I'm gonna borrow a knife here for a second. Again, it's more of a scraping motion than any cutting per se.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's
All right, we are just
restaurant.
about at the
Walk right
end of this
in,
process.
around the back, just a half a mile from the
And
railroad
skin
track.
off of there because we
You
want as
can
much
get
skin as possible because that's how it's going to
anything
seal
you
up.
want at Alice's restaurant.
All right, so now we'll just leave that on the side. And now you can see that we've got pretty much a deboned turkey, as Jacques Pepin would say. The only thing left now will be to remove the leg bones and the wing bones. So we'll set them like that for a second, make them look presentable. Now I've got a lot of slime here, so I'm going to just clean up. And I'm just going to rinse off the knives a little bit so they're not so slimy or slippery. All right, so I'm going to just pull these off. This is an easy part. It should come right off. And if you get any meat like this left on, you can throw that aside and you can just throw it into the bird afterwards. Okay, again I'll slice a little of this off because I use it to fill out the bird. There we go. And again, that's all going into the soup, so eventually it'll get eaten. This is still part of step 9 of removing the fillet. What we're going to do is, see the sinew here? That's a little, something we don't want in here.
You can get anything you want at Alice's
Take this away.
restaurant.
And I'm going to take
You
my
can
towel,
get anything
hold down
you
on the
want
end of that sinew,
at
take the
Alice's
knife,
restaurant. Walk right in,
And
it's
just
around
scrape.
the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
same on this side. And the sinew is out. Okay, so now we've got that guy done and that done. Save that in case we need something filled in. Now we're ready to take out the bones in the legs and the wings. Okay, so we'll start with the leg itself. What we want to do here is just cut around the top of the bone. Mostly to get a grip on it, and then just scrape down. Okay, and now we're going to get to the next knuckle and going to cut around it to get to the lower portion of the leg. All right, same process here of just going down, scrape down until we get to the end of the world here. What we're going to do now, I'm going to leave this final knuckle on because that keeps the stuffing from oozing out. And I will take a cleaver, and I'm not going to cut through it. I'm just going to give it a whack here and break the bone. There we go. So I just broke the leg bone. And now, just reach in, pull this, and there we have it. Okay, so now I'm going to be able to stuff into the leg there. And I'll work on this side. Same thing.
Can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
All right, just coming around the bone there.
Around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Scraping. Again, one of the things you're doing here is you're scraping away from the tendons that usually are on the bone there, so we won't have any. We shouldn't have tendon in the finished product here.
Oh, which is always 90.
Yeah. Okay. So again, now we're down to the end here, and we're going to crack that bone. Okay, so that takes care of the legs, and now we're going to do the wing. Similar process. I'm trying to sharpen my knife though. All right, we do the same thing. We got the joint, just cut around it so we can grab onto it. With the chicken, you could probably press down to it, but with the turkey, it's going to be a little tougher.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Okay, and that takes care of that
You can
side.
get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Okay, so now what we have is a deboned turkey. And let's lay them out here, get them all set up. Well, we're back in business here, and we're now going to reassemble this bird. The fillets that I took out earlier, I'm going to place them back in here, just to add a little meat into that portion that's separated out. And I should fill that out. Last little bit of cutting here, I'm going to cut into the breast a little bit. And as I mentioned earlier, what we're trying to do is get it so that it's pretty even amount of meat and skin, and then ultimately the stuffing. Again, another advantage of doing it this way, if you like stuffing, you can get infinitely more stuffing into the bird than you might do otherwise. All right, so now I'm going to use my stuffing. This is stuffing I made yesterday. It is a cornbread and sausage and mushroom with a little celery and onion. And you want your stuffing to be cold, certainly not hot, especially if you're not going to throw the bird right into the oven immediately. And I just want to get an even amount. We've got this wonderful leg that we can have stuffing. When was the last time you had stuffing in the leg of your turkey? Yeah, well, now. Like I say, I'm the stuffing fanatic. I like it cooked in the bird. All right. So let's see how this is going to look. You could sew this up. I am just going to wrap it with butcher's string. Find a place for that. Okay, now we've got that done. I'm going to turn the bird over on its stomach. All right, so I'm going to tie up his legs.
I didn't know how to do this fancy knot. Could you just cut it and tie a bunch of bows?
I guess you could. It's called a half hitch, this knot. And you want to do fairly tight, but not so tight.
At Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Walk right in, it's around
And
the back.
we are ready
Just
for
a half a mile from the railroad
roasting,
track.
which will be in a couple
You
hours.
can get
Put this back
anything
into the
you want at
refrigerator.
Alice's restaurant.
When you cook it, you flip it over?
Yeah, it'll roast the other side. So into the fridge. That's fine.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Excepting Alice, you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. So walk right in, it's around the back. Just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. At Alice's restaurant.
So, your dad was a butcher.
Yep,
He had a butcher shop in Woodbine, New Jersey.
that's true.
He would have done stuff like this.
Yeah, he could have done. He didn't always do this. I mean, it's kind of a process that,
This specific
Yeah.
thing. Back then, they got whole animals, right? And they had to
Yeah.
butcher them. It's not like nowadays where they just come already.
no, that's true.
That's where you learn to sharpen your knives.
That is true. Later we'll talk about, the butcher shop. This is a knife that used to be my dad's and was in the butcher shop. It's probably about 100 years old. And if you look, the original knife started here and went all the way across. And over the years of sharpening, it became more like a different style knife. Anyhow, that still remains one of the sharpest knives I have. It's an old Chicago steel, and is interesting in that it just holds an edge like I can't seem to buy anything like that anymore.